As soon as I see some signal, I think we are live. All right, intro rolling. Okay, it's Tuesday. Well, at least 9 o'clock over here. Hello, everybody. This is Let's Talk Tuesday with Joseph and Ted. And we're here at it again, having some good conversation about everything tech, life, AEC, whatever that we do in sort of daily business, and just trying to talk about things that we like and also perhaps something that you guys like as well. Today, the topic that we chose to talk about, at least, or have a focus on, is to do some rendering critique. It was well received on last sessions, so hopefully this becomes a meaningful content for any of you who decides to tune in or watch later on. And if you guys have any questions or things that you would like to have us talk about, then I would be happy to fill in. How's things been, Ted?
Busy. Things have been busy. I've been preparing for this Enscape webinar on Thursday. We'll have
Yes.
a link to that in the video description. And then we've been working pretty hard on figuring out what we're going to talk about at Envision 21, which is going to be pretty exciting. I don't know if you've heard about that, Joseph, but Enscape's doing their conference event online, so we're going to be participating in that, giving it a little talk. Haven't dialed in exactly what we're going to talk about, but we got some cool stuff on the horizon. And yeah, hopefully a little vacation here in the very near future.
Cool. I didn't realize you were on the list. I
Did they put
am.
me on the list? I haven't gotten on the list yet. I'm supposed to send them my
Okay,
stuff by the 20th.
I
So I'm
see.
not officially on, but I spoke to them and they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So now I got to figure out what a topic is going to be. So, Joseph, what do you think I should talk about?
You should talk about Enscape, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, I
shoot.
would, I would, I would also be there. I did sign up as a speaker, to be what specifically? Again, I will be talking about Enscape as well, but it's a little bit unknown at this very moment. Obviously, I'm a little bit more flexible in terms of Enscape related topics. So I said, I'll fill in where you need me at, and I'll be happy to at least, have a talk with people who either know me through the channel or don't know me. But I would love to have a chat with anybody who wants to talk about Enscape and some of the architectural business that we typically do. So it'll be
Love it.
exciting. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Me too. Um, all right. Let me do a screen share. See if that actually works. Present now. My entire
And
screen.
we're doing the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust video, correct?
Yes.
Love it.
I believe you should be able to see it too.
I
Um,
do.
okay. So everyone should be able to see what I am seeing. So I'm just gonna roll. So I will also leave this link in the chat. So anybody who wishes to watch it with me, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, this is a YouTube public link. Ted found this and decided to share it with me, and I thought it would be a worthy content to just kind of look at and for a talking points. This is Frank Lloyd Wright, The Lost Works, the Imperial Hotel. So I guess this is sort of the rework of what his work would have been. Let me see if I can make it to full screen. There you go. I'm gonna roll a little bit and then dial back. Hopefully my internet works.
I think things are working.
Mm-hmm. So it's about the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, Japan. Or Japan, Tokyo.
Let's see here.
And of course the golden brick and the stonework, the volcanic rock.
So I've only watched part of this, but from what I've seen, the detailing in this particular model is pretty impressive. They give you a few up close shots, and it's just something else. That said, some of the rendering techniques in the foreground are
Some of the entourages.
yeah, some of the foreground entourage you'll see here in a second, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, this just feels very
Empty.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess you do have
But then
something in
again,
the foreground, but then the middle. Yeah.
I actually don't know a whole lot about this particular project, so I don't know what was actually there or what was potentially supposed to be there. But by the same token, man, that is such a detailed model, that building.
With all the brickwork.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the setup is Tokyo, 1967, I believe, and I believe some cars, especially in Tokyo, and people, I guess they decide to kind of omit that as sort of a story or history. This is a rework, so
They're looking to show off the building, not, necessarily photo accurate to the time period. Although it might have been nice to have something reminiscent of that particular period. And I would have loved to have seen a little bit better texturing. There's a lot of tiling that happens in the stone. I think that's partially because the Lumion material, one of the things with Lumion that you can get into trouble with is their dirt materials can kind of accentuate bad aspects of a texture, like the repetition on a texture sometimes.
Did you just give it away? So is this done in Lumion?
I don't know particularly, but I would say this is done in Lumion. That's my best guess. I'm 99% sure this is Lumion, although I'm never 100% sure without seeing the artist's work. But yeah, I mean, just the way the lighting is, there's a lot of chromatic aberration that they add in for certain elements in Lumion, and it feels like a Lumion rendering. Same with the grass. The grass is the other giveaway. So,
You
but
really
I mean,
got the eye for it. I can't tell.
yeah, that dirt texture is definitely Lumion. But I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. This is really impressive for like the level of detail in the modeling. Oh, I would have. I don't know how long this would have taken to model it. And up close, those textures really hold up well. That stone feels really good.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have audio on mine. I'm watching this on my screen as well. The audio definitely helps a lot with these things.
Yeah.
Just because the music is kind of nice, and that gives the pacing and timing of the video kind of the right look and feel. But yeah, this is a really pretty model.
It is. You know, just because you don't have like the people or a bit more entourage, I think it's a bit more poetic and just tells.
Yeah, less is more.
Yeah. Well,
It
in
can
this
get
case,
cluttered.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit ahead of your video, but there's a shot in a few seconds,
Yeah,
right around
these.
the middle, that they jump to dusk, and it looks phenomenal.
Hmm.
Oh, wow. All right, I'm cheating because I keep scooting ahead. Um, Jump forward a little bit in yours.
All
I
right.
don't think we need to react to the entire video. It's 15 minutes long.
Oh gosh,
This is a
yeah.
chunk, yeah. But yeah, right in here, this is nice with the lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did a really nice job. That's the other thing. Like with Lumion, it does a really good job with um, wet surfaces. Dusky wet surfaces always feel really good in Lumion.
So, how would you get that effect, by the way? Would you model those things? I don't.
What's that? The
Um,
lighting?
no, the I don't want to call it the mullions.
Oh, I mean the window spar, is that the technical term?
It's
Window.
Japan, Tokyo, and I don't know the term. It's a wooden, thin.
We'll call it a window spar. I don't
Okay.
know what else to call it.
All right, go ahead.
I have a feeling these are modeled just because of the level of detail of this model.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's detailed on the interior as well. This took some effort.
Yes. I mean,
I
those
don't
are some
envy the
nice
modeler.
looking. I mean, this is done for the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust, and I wonder if this is like
I think they got a grant to do this at some point.
pretty
Somebody,
fun to do. I
yeah.
think. Yeah. This is the interior portion. Okay. So I guess it's two different model.
I don't know. In that first shot, you could see this interior stair. So
Hmm.
this might all be the same model.
I
I mean,
see.
that's a pretty impressive interior space. It feels like something out of a video game. Not
Yeah.
the Lumion rendering, but the just general feeling of this particular building.
Like the
Um,
blockiness. I wanted to say Minecraft, but
yeah, it does
it
feel
does
very
kind of
we're gonna get some
diminishing what
hate.
that. Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna get some comment hate, but it's true. It does. It has that blockiness. It feels very, um, you know, very elemental. You've got some glowing bits. You've got the stone. You've got the brick.
It is
Everything is very,
phytoorthogonal,
yeah.
and I mean that was his architectural style and choices. Not that I learned all that well in school. Um,
I only retained so much.
he was known well. You see, and I'm terrible with history, remembering things, names, and all. But one thing I do remember is the fact that he was into a horizontal lines that spans from one side to the other, and using bricks and thin bricks to accentuate the horizontal lines, and that's apparent here too.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Frank Lloyd Wright. I know his work is monumental for the time, and it's important to learn about. I'm probably gonna get some hate in the comments for this, but he's not my favorite architect personally. I think some of his designs worked well at the time, but from a functionality standpoint, it was very, very awkward. If you've ever visited the Falling Water House, those ceilings are very, very low. It's I wouldn't want to live there. That's all I can say.
maybe,
But
maybe he doesn't want to live there. It's just a good project for him too, you know.
exactly. That's I can't. He was revolutionary for his time, so I'm no Frank Lloyd Wright. So who am I to say?
Wait,
You
is
know,
this Wait, is this God ray just done artificially? Is that possible?
What do you mean artificially?
Like,
There's a God ray mode in Lumion.
yes, but what I mean is, the lights don't have place. The roof or the ceiling is not. There's no skylight. This looks like coming from the skylight rather than the side clear story.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, the light might be coming from somewhere else in that. I mean,
Here
it's.
you don't see it, but there it felt like you've got some.
I don't know exactly how Lumion calculates its God rays, and I've always thought they were a little funky.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it depends on the scene. But man, this is one very big model.
Birds, nice.
Gotta have the birds.
You
At least
gotta
we
have
got
the birds.
something. I think they went a little overboard with
It's a butterfly. Okay,
the
never mind.
butterflies. That is a lot of butterflies.
Yes. You gotta have the birds flying in the air balloons. It's a
Gotta have
thing.
that guy on the bicycle flying through somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I was saying about like Lumion assets just immediately become recognizable because everybody uses them. Same thing goes for Enscape. Enscape assets are immediately recognizable, which isn't a bad thing. The
It's
reality
a
of it,
signature, I guess.
well, I mean, the reality of it is we recognize them because we see them all the time. The client or the layperson, they rarely ever notice that as an asset that they see all the time because they're not looking at renderings 24/7.
Oh, here comes
So
the more God ray. Nice hallway.
here comes the sun. Sorry, we're gonna get copyright ding now.
I don't mind you sinning. Cool. I'm gonna skip ahead.
Yeah, let's see. I think it jumps to just like a big aerial and then some more info about the project.
Okay. That's a big space. And somebody spent a good time lining up those chairs and dishes.
No, they didn't. They just arrayed it. It's an array modifier. It's fine. That's how they did it back then.
I see. It's like poop, poop. Cool. We'll wrap it up there. Hey, that's what it looked like. I had a waterfall. Or what do you call it? Fountain, not waterfall. And the credit goes to Frank Lloyd Wright Trust. Okay. I think
Yeah.
that was the first shot at it. Okay, and then the next thing I had up. Go ahead.
Creation and architectural visualization by Razin Khan. There we go. Get the guy who modeled that whole thing and rendered it out in there. I'm gonna have to look him up.
All right, let's do that. Where did that show up? Is it
in the credits right before?
Here, Razin Khan. Okay. And I also had, so let me just kind of give everybody a sort of preview. So I was connected to this person, Akram Avrabiani, who shared some works on Instagram, Facebook, I believe, a few times. So he does some of these nice looking renderings. And he said he would be happy to share some work with me for me to share on a channel. So the credit goes to him. And let me go ahead and open up the model as well as play some of his YouTube actually that is available. So that is an ad.
Gotta love those ads.
Mm-hmm. I haven't watched his actually. Any of the video. So whilst I load up the files, let's go ahead and play that.
All right. So are we critiquing on rendering, design, both?
Both.
What's the focus? Okay, a little of both.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to be the first to say I'm no interior designer, so.
Me neither. But we'll feel it.
So right away, one of the things that I notice is these camera pans, they look pretty good, but I mean, anytime you start showing this stuff, definitely think about the story behind what you're showing. There's nothing outside the window, so there's it's a great little room, but I think I would like to have some element that is drawing my eye, some main element that you want to show that is the reason you're illustrating this room. Because the problem is when you've got a lot of repetitious like pans, pulls, zooms, it gets a little bit not boring. Boring is the wrong word, but repetitive.
Mm-hmm. Now, for the purpose of doing, does that say innovation designer? For the purpose of doing like an interior design and showing your clients what you're capable of, and little kind of storyboard and a bit of mood board that you kind of put together and showing these short clips is impressive, as well as it does kind of tell what you do and all, but I don't know, this was like a designated project where I guess it is a bedroom interior for somebody, for someone.
So from a strictly modeling perspective, we've got a couple of things that draw my eye. The bed sheet is floating.
Yes.
Like there's a duplicate bed sheet that's kind of floating there. That takes you out of the scene almost immediately. And I tell this to a lot of people who are doing renderings all the time. Don't use the carpet shader that Enscape gives you for a shag carpet. It just never looks good.
Yeah.
It always feels a little bit too tall and not full enough. You're almost better off finding, like if the client really needs a shag rug, finding a good high pile model. You can find those on CG Trader, and Polygon has a few, and just crank the displacement a little bit higher than you normally would. That'll help a lot. Just the Enscape is great with its simplified grass systems and carpet systems, but they only can go so far. They're not going to bring you the level of realism that you want. From a design perspective, it's
more ads.
Lots of ads. Lots of ads tonight.
And I also muted the sound for copyright reasons. I don't know what that's going to be, so
it's fine. From the design perspective, it feels maybe this is a room for a hotel of some kind. That's kind of what the vibe that I get is. It's sort of modern-esque.
So this is the next one, just another one. Very similar style across, which is good to keep consistency. Ooh, there's one thing I noticed. When you draw circles, make sure you have a bit more than 24 facets on SketchUp. It does give you 24 as a default, but either you increase it by multiples, or let's say 96 or 48 for those so that it is not a immediate giveaway. But quite effective use of Enscape assets too. You gotta
Yeah,
make a
yeah.
good use out of them.
I mean, I think there's also a very distinct design language in certain areas that this. Oh, we got some floating stuff again. This may work in some areas and not in others. I know if we were to do any kind of design work, this probably wouldn't be where we would head. Typically, our clients, when they are looking for design work, it's very um, I can't believe I'm saying this. Sort of the shanty chic type look
Mm-hmm.
is a very popular style. Or um, there's a an architect that we worked with who does a phenomenal job of decorating in this particular style, and I think it's called they refer to it as like patina or patina modern. Essentially, it's eclectic, is all it is. But the guy's name is um, why am I blanking? Steve Gianetti is the architect that we've worked with in the past. He does this really well. But it's very difficult to get that in SketchUp. Those sort of things with lots of patina and lots of um, age to it, and make it feel legit, because that's very hard to do. This one's a little interesting. I like the geometric patterning on that back
Mm-hmm.
wall.
The black glass.
The TV feels a little bit dated, but this mirrored thing, I don't the mirrored accent wall, I will call it. That actually has been popping up. I've seen that in a lot. Not that particular one, but um, these oval mirrors have been really popular
Oh,
recently.
these, I see.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Lots
the
and lots of marble, lots and lots of white.
the wood texture, what is your sort of philosophy when it comes to the wood material? When, this is a bit
So
repeating.
it depends on. I noticed this recently. I was in a nice hotel. I was like looking at the wood textures on the wall. I'm
That's what
realizing,
you do. I know
yeah,
hotel.
that's what I do. That's what I do now. It's bad. The wood textures are all repeating on the walls, and I was like, this looks like a rendering because everything repeats. But the reason that is most of the like wooden paneling that you see in luxury hotels and things like that are veneers, and they are a very thin slice of wood that gives you the pattern, but it's like peeled off of whatever it is. So they slice it very thin, and you get this wood pattern that repeats itself over and over and over again. And for the longest time, I would show wood grain. So let's talk about the door. The horizontal on either side of the door would be horizontal, and the vertical would be across. I was at um, I was at a Four Seasons recently. Well, recently, a year and a half ago, I was in a Four Seasons before COVID, and I was looking at the door frame, and the wooden door frame, the material went straight up the horizontal, and then straight up on the or straight up on the vertical piece, and then the horizontal piece also straight up. And I was just looking at it, and I had to like cock my head, and I was confused because every time I've ever modeled and rendered something like that, I've been putting it horizontal for the horizontal, vertical for the vertical, and that's just how it was. But I'm realizing that a lot of the craftspeople who build these things don't actually do it that way, and
Hmm.
it's a case by case basis. It's what the architect specs, and then what the craftsman builds. Those can tend to be two different things. So I honestly don't have a good answer how you should do it. Do it to the design specifications.
Right, right. And
So
obviously, you've got to spend some time at these kind of places and look out for those things
mhm,
and then actually realize yourself too. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, I've seen, a lot of laminates too, and they tend to just repeat every now an actual application.
Mm-hmm.
That's one other thing. And then you would just take a 45 degree at the corners, and then basically they all sort of line up. I've seen that as
Yeah.
well. For the door, I try to use like a slightly different scale or like maybe a slight different tone of the wood texture on like a two different surface, just so that it is a bit more distinguished. I understand you kind of want to keep the same material, but I don't know. I'd rather not just angle the frame and then
Yeah,
actual
that's an
wood
odd
panel.
one. I
Yeah,
don't think
that's an
that's
odd
the
one.
direction I would have gone either, but as far as lighting is concerned from a rendering perspective, I think the level of light is looking okay. There's a nice change between warm and cool, but it still feels a little bit render-y.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think who is it? HDD Studio. I don't know if you've seen any of his work. He does some really, really nice lighting in his interior scenes. If you want really good reference for lighting and interior design, because his are really nice, clean, very minimalist, but very clean. His renderings look really good.
So this specific bedroom model, I happen to have this model because he shared it with me. So this is the Enscape screen. Um, and in SketchUp, it looks like this. So as far as like the modeling technique go, I can kind of critique in some ways. So here, all the edges are shown. When unnecessary busy edges are shown this way, my recommendation is either to smooth or hide the edges. It's actually much easier to handle. It's just a modeling technique. This is nothing of an aesthetic because those edges don't really show on the Enscape side. But when there's a lot of edges, your computer's actually rendering those edges as you orbit and zoom around. So there are some
It's
extensions to handle this easily. One of my favorite is Hide All Edges. It is by
ooh, I don't have
TIG,
that one.
TIG, and you can search for it. It's called Hide All Edges, Unhide All Edges. I just select the component and just hit that, and then it'll think for a bit, especially when it has a
Now let
lot
me
of
ask you
edges.
something,
Go ahead.
Joseph. Does it hide the edges or does it soften the edges?
So there are two different ones. There's another one that I use, which is these. I think it's called Soften, and if I use that, I can either soften. I think this is written so that under a certain angle, it all
Mm-hmm.
softens, and then I can also just downright soften all edges. But sometimes I see when these are surfaces are not playing all that well. If these are actually undulating and playing nicely, you can soften all, but on some fabrics you get kind of twists and turns, and when you
Yeah,
soften that
yeah.
way, it looks really odd at that point. So in those cases, I'd rather just hide the edges. So the first
Fair enough.
pass, I would do a soften, just a regular soft, so that under a certain angle, you just soften that. And then I don't really ever do soften all edges. And the next one is on soften all edges. I also use that time to time, but I just run a first pass of soften edges as a regular and then hide all the rest of the edges that are not playing all that well. But either way, it helps for SketchUp to render the scene because yeah, it is trying to render the edges, especially when you have a style chosen to have the profile turned on, and I'm noticing that on like these edges,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes the model to be ran that much more difficult. So my personal preference is either to turn off the profile, if you must to keep it on for your stylistic choices, I'd rather keep it on at 1 so that it
Yeah.
appears the same as others and it's not as heavy. The heavier that is harder for your computer to run.
Well, so the reason I asked that question about the edges hide versus soften, I run into a problem all the time with models that I get from others where they've hidden the edges.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say on this thing, if I hide the edges on that, it means that each individual's face is still selectable individually, and it can be painful when you're trying to um, attach a material to that thing,
Yes. Yes.
being able to select everything. So I think it's a personal preference. I always soften
Mm-hmm. I
instead of
mean,
hide.
if I actually have time, what I will do is I go in because I noticed that this is probably import of some sort. Obviously, you don't really model this way in SketchUp anyway. So I go in, highlight the raw geometry, and then there is TomTom's tool called not cleanup, but the edge tools. I have all of this as a shortcut, so I have to like
Mm,
rethink what it was
where
exactly.
is it and what is
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
But it is, I have it as Shift W as a shortcut, and maybe it is a cleanup. It's one of the function on the cleanup here, merge faces. So basically, it gets rid of any coplanar division, meaning if it has sort of triangulation for unnecessary reason. Because if you were to just erase this, it will probably stay because this is what happens when you import geometries. But obviously, you can't really go through all cleaning all of this up. So that extensions function here, the merge faces basically does that for you. And depending on here, it is doing it 30%, 40%, and then it's done it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
got rid of. So this is sort of level of cleanup that I would do
Yeah.
if I was actually handed over this model. If I run
What was
bunch
that
of
tool again? One more
uh,
time. What was that tool?
cleanup
Okay, that
by
was
TomTom.
cleanup.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then it is merge faces, and I designated shortcut Shift W. So I actually
Okay.
mentioned in one of my videos as a like a SketchUp shortcut tools a while back, but I have a shortcut for Shift W and then Shift E for cleaning up any of the hanging edges. So let's say you imported something and then they've got, some edges that are floating about that leads to nothing. On the edge tools, there is something called, so if I select all and then on the edge tools, same person, TomTom, and then I have erase stray curves. Basically, it erases a meaningless edges. So once you
Mm-hmm.
run that, it'll get rid of these edges and then report back to you. And then I have Fredo 6's tool. It's one of his package under Fredo 6 tool. And then it is, my shortcut is Shift R. So I'm going in order: Shift W, Shift E, Shift R. So all the faces, all the edges, and then these are vertices. So remove lonely vertices. Basically, that's what I'm running, and there's no lonely vertices in selection. But if you
Mm-hmm.
ever have like a division on a face, I'm gonna be careful because this looks like a very complex edge here. Um, but if you ever had a division, so
Right.
I'm gonna double up this edge. So there actually is a break in the edge right here. And if that is the case, if I run this extension, it is going to fix that break right there. So I go from faces, edges, and then the vertices and do a cleanup, isolated. Because if I try to run all of this as a script, cleanup kind of does that for you,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen in cases where it downright fails. Sometimes I want some control over it, so I just have a habit of using that whenever I'm cleaning up stuff. And it became very, very useful for me. So here's top tip for cleaning up janitorial work for your models, um, that I typically do.
Yeah.
And
That's
here
great.
again, here is a doubling up a face. I don't really need that rectangle, so I go Shift W to clean up those faces that are not necessary, and then you see how it opens up for you. And then at this point, if I hit Shift E, and then it gets rid of all of these edges that are not necessary, and then I hit Shift R. I don't think it's gonna take out anything, but now I understand everything's good. And these are the sort of the edges that can be softened. And at this point, I'll hit this tool right here, soften edges, and then it'll probably be fine. And mind you, actually still have Enscape running in the background, so any of
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing right now is somewhat dangerous because you don't want to be running so many extensions whilst you have live model open, because Enscape may not like it.
Yep.
But the very reason behind in running all of these in sort of isolation is because it tends to be a lot more stable, as well as you can isolate what the problem may be. If you ever crash, you know what step you had crashed that into. So
Yeah.
here, so again, I have softened everything. Things seemed okay, but as you can see, there's some edges that are either not happy about the softened deal, and some edges remained just because the angle wasn't within the criteria that is softened for. In this case, and then I just kind of select that and then hide all edges in this case. That way, there's no sort of visible these very short lines that I don't seem to be able to soften altogether. And yeah, so that way you kind of cleaned
Hmm.
up what the excess edges and softening that you needed to do.
Cool. So just a side note,
Hmm.
you may lose me here. My computer's starting to lock up.
Okay. If we ever do, we'll just continue and then you can maybe rejoin.
All right. I think it was SketchUp in the background.
I see. Well, as
Of course it was.
of course it is SketchUp doing
There we
running all
go.
of those extensions. But all of those tools took basically no impact on actual the visibility or the render of Enscape because it is just the edge cleanup. So
Yeah. Now, if you turn on edges in Enscape and all that was visible, you might have a little bit of trouble. I know Enscape does its own thing when it comes to edges and outlines, but sometimes it'll
it
pick up some of what SketchUp's
it
doing.
doesn't pick up anything. So
It
meaning
doesn't? Okay.
no. Even if I had all of these edges shown, Enscape will not. It has
It
its
just gives you
own.
its nice little outline. Okay.
Yeah, it has its own mind, and when
Because
it
I know
comes
they had
to
trouble with that early on, and I don't really use the edges feature very often. So,
no, I do.
um,
I do extensively. Is one of my favorites. I perhaps put it down too much, so I usually keep it at 20%. It gives me nice crisp lines,
mhm.
or crisp. I don't want to say lines, crisp edges or crisp geometry. So it's basically sharpening feature at that point. And 20% seems to be the happy number for me, but in case where it is sort of a bit more conceptual, I may just bring that up a bit to, let's say, 30%. I rarely would go more than 40%. That starts to, you see how it started to pick
You
up
get
all of those.
cartoony.
Yeah, this edges started to show up. And in the distance,
In
this,
some cases, though, I mean, I feel like it could be useful, but
yeah,
it's got to be very
niche case,
stylized.
yeah, niche
Yeah.
case scenario. They used to have this problem where um, you have these fabric material that starts to put down artificial amount of edges, which doesn't look natural. You see how that start to bring up the edges on the fabric, and I think it's lately a lot better controlled because in its mind, in fairness, it needs to somehow decide when to stick the outlines. You see how all of these grooves started to receive outline on here,
Mm-hmm.
but not on here. So at what point do you decide to put down the outline versus not is somewhat difficult for Enscape to decide on, and they have been much better lately, but it
Yeah.
was rough long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had to really control that scene to scene. For me, 20% is always the number that I go to and seems to suit most case scenario. So that's sort of my stylistic choice, if you may. We got some floating stuff again. What do you usually do to unfloat them?
Um, so there's a couple of things that I do. Drop CG is one of them. So it'll drop a group to the surface. There's also in the JFS power bar, I
Mm-hmm.
think is what it's called. I'm just looking for the tool. There's like a drop to surface. And then really it's just a matter of going through and double checking your model and just being cognizant of where your assets are and how they're going to sit on the surface, and make sure that there's a certain amount of weight associated with everything that you are working on.
Yeah, I
So,
I have to admit that I have not got into JS Power Bar. I know what it is and I've heard what it is, but I have not been in it. So I'm gonna have to test that out. But my method in putting things on ground, I always this was even before the dawn of JS Power Bar and other stuff. TomTom also made something called Ray Tracer, and I like this tool for its simplicity. I use all three here. I have
mhm.
no idea what others do, but these three drop components, and this is like such a simple script that it seems to work all the time. Like again, all the extensions that I use are tested in a very long time. So I know for sure it works in a very complex command as well, like
Mhm.
trees and dropping lots of geometries onto the ground. Drop components is basically as easy as, the surface versus or vertices versus the surface. And then the drop by boundary, the
Yeah.
component is when it's like a car on a hill, and then it will just drop and then angle for you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've not ever used this tool. Why do I not have this tool?
Because the ray tracer doesn't really ring a bell, does it? I don't think it's
No, I
named
don't think I've ever
correctly.
heard this one. Yeah, I hear ray tracer, I think V-Ray.
Right.
So the other thing that I noticed unrelated to this is it looks like there might have been a shelf there that got deleted somewhere along the way.
Yeah, yeah, I noticed
Because
that
they're
too.
lined up perfectly with the top edge of those drawers.
Hmm.
So,
So here I'm trying to put this pouch at an angle as a demonstration.
Joseph, I learn something new every time we're talking. It's wonderful.
No, that's what this is for. We share information. Again, it's gonna nudge me in the right direction of using JHS Power Bar, as Tony said on the chat. So yeah, it puts me on the right mind as well. um, some of these extensions, until you try, you never know. You see how it just angled on the
I wish I had that last week.
when you were putting down trees.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would have saved me some time.
but again, those there are other alternatives that are available. I guess in this case is the JHS Power Bar. Isn't that sort of collection of tools?
Yeah, it's not just one. I don't know what the legalities are. I guess it's something on Sketchucation, not in the.
And of course, I don't have
Uh,
Sketchucation installed
it's
right
fine.
now. Gosh. Oh, I do.
Um,
Never mind.
but yeah, I think it's just like a collection of tools that somebody put together, and I think they're all open source tools. So the guys who wrote them are like, yeah, I don't care. But it could also be one developer. I honestly don't know much about the history of this.
I know it. Okay, so when I first installed it long ago, it was collection of tools, and there
Mm-hmm.
were some tools that I'd never use or I never intended to be used. So I think this is like a modified collection of tools, isn't
It's still
it?
the same kind of thing. I mean, there's less stuff that I use, but I think like the randomization uh, tool is kind of quick and easy.
So
I'm
I
having
guess
a
he
hard
kind of
time.
collected all the things that he finds useful.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
see some
Explode
of the
curve.
sketchy FFD thing, and then.
Yep.
So which one is the one you used to drop?
If you scroll over the two that look like water droplets,
Water droplets. Drop and intersection. So,
it's not very good, but it's been working fine. It just drops it to the surface.
mm-hmm.
But it's like right there. It's easy. I don't have to think about it. That requires you to put in a specific height
Oh, okay.
value.
Also, this thing
But
doesn't rotate for you. There are other
no,
extensions
no.
who which does that, but for me, ray tracer always has been what I go to, and I guess the soften thing is here again.
Yeah, yeah. So
Smooth,
it's like a
yeah.
collection of different tools that you've already got installed, but it's just one bar of them. Um, Honestly, I don't use a lot except for like pipe along path.
I do
I use
use that,
all the
yeah.
time.
There's additional
Mirror.
version of that I use as well. There is a I haven't used pipe along path for a long time, but profile builder is another that I use for
I
something
really need to
similarly
learn
smooth.
a little bit more about Profile Builder. I'm not very good at it, and I feel kind of frustrated because I bought this tool. I'm like, I'm going to use it for everything, and then I got into it. I'm like, this is taking too long to learn. I have other things to do, and I didn't really understand enough about it to really put it to use. So I've got it, and I just don't use it yet.
Okay, you know
Got to
what?
fix that.
This is all leaning into a complete new session. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, maybe we crack down this extensions case where we just put a model up and then compare, contrast, or say stuff about what between you and
Extension
me.
talk. I
Extension
love it.
talk,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we need to have some collection and discuss what. And obviously, we've got to have a good example or use case scenarios, but maybe we'll just open up our extensions toolbar and then see what
Yeah.
we do and why we have such thing, and maybe we can spend an hour on that. So, uh, Girado, if you are up for that sort of thing, maybe tune in for the future sessions where I talk about those things, and we both learn too. So, okay. And another little tip here, outside the extension talk, as in D3D said, zoom in and out is something I do, but I also have the shortcut of Shift C for camera or walk mode. This is another shortcut, a custom shortcut that I have designated so that I can always have this smooth motion. But here, when you're in this zoom mode, you can also set the, not zoom mode, the camera mode. You can also set eye height. So like even if you had like
Mm-hmm.
orbited to a specific spot and then you ended up too low or too high, and then I hit Shift C, and then I just put down the eye height so that I can just elevate right back up to where I need to be, so for setting views. And also in a tight spaces like this, sometimes orbiting is not necessarily the way you want to do. I want to turn my head towards the right, so I use the same tool. But here, if you try to orbit using your middle mouse button, I actually
Mm-hmm.
end up panning around, meaning
Yeah.
you're
So here's something. If there are any developers listening, Joseph, um, somebody needs to make a gamify extension so that you can use WASD
they do. They
like
were
an
some.
Enscape.
There were some cases where they have done that, and a few times I've used it, but some of them were very clunky,
Oh,
especially
I'm sure.
especially because those keys are usually designated for a specific type of tools. That was the reason for it. And
But if you set a hotkey to turn Gamify on and off, you could like do Control Shift something to kick on Gamify, and then you can control your view with WASD, and then jump out of it. I've been like I hated using the WASD key commands early on in Enscape and Lumion, and I'm not a gamer. I'm a terrible gamer. Um, but once I started using it in Enscape and being able to toggle the fly mode on and off with the shift bar,
Mhm.
man, that opened up so many doors for finding a good view and finding a realistic view. I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss when they're setting up their renderings is they'll put the viewpoint either too high or too low. Low is less bad than too high because if you get above a certain point, it's like the sort of um, uncanny valley effect for camera angles. If it's like the drone angle, and that's fine if that's what you're going for, and there's a specific reason you're doing that drone angle. But when you're in like a living room and you get too high, it's like, am I Michael Jordan? I should not be at 7 or 8 feet in the air.
Right. And
Axis cam.
yeah,
Okay,
Axis Cam is
interesting.
something that Indie 3D said, I cannot find Sketch Occasion toolbar. Am I just blind or can't see that?
Is it actually on? Do you have it
Yeah.
active?
Yeah, I have it.
Hold on. I'm gonna find it.
Here, it should be under listed here. Am I just blind? Sketch Occasion, or is it in, or maybe extension? Oh, here, extension store. Sorry. Okay, now we are. I always have that in there. I don't know why it just got out. I was gonna search for Axis Cam. Um, there was like one that I found that some sort of Japanese developer, Indie
oh, hang
3D.
on a second.
Yeah,
That
he's
guy looks familiar.
yes, yes. He does look familiar. Uh, okay. So Axis Cam is something you
Shameless
can.
plug. I like
Yes,
it.
why not? Something that you developed works. Um, yeah. I haven't used this one myself, but
I'm gonna give it a try.
okay. Yeah, actually, I have several extensions that are just here because I'm gonna give it a try and just never got around trying it.
Half
Just
of my
like,
extension library is that. Oh, this looks great. I'm gonna try that out.
yeah, and
3 years later, what does this do again?
yeah, there are some that are like listed here that I never use. Just put it down just so I
What's
can
that red and yellow one above your cursor right there?
read. And this one,
Yeah.
this is Skimp. It's something I also use a
Oh.
lot, especially for those of you who are listening in who are admin Enscape users. When you're trying to make a custom asset and bringing 3D warehouse stuff and then just really dialing the geometry count down, this is the best tool that you can use. I have a tutorial on it on my channel, so you can watch it. But I highly recommend when you're trying to clean up things in a very I would say geometry count way. It's not playing with the edges. It is literally, let's say you get a pillow that are astronomical in terms of the complexity. It
Mm-hmm.
just reduces the triangulation.
So typically, I end up using transmuter for that. I'll open up a SketchUp file into transmuter, adjust it, drop it back in. But then I've never actually used Skimp.
Okay, I have to add my license, so I need to do that. But yeah,
Ah,
it's meant to basically simplify these things for you, so it reduces amount of triangles that are in the model.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I remember hearing about it when it came out. I've just never given it a go.
Cool. We are
Learning all
top.
kinds of new stuff.
Yeah, I think the extension thing is something that is going to be quite interesting once we decide to do. Again, thanks for sharing your model and being our guinea pig so we can talk about you, Akram. And this is a model that he's developed. Obviously, he's got his own channel. I'll leave a link in the chat so you guys could also watch his stuff if you're interested in. And yeah, if any of you are interested in being featured on the streams or videos on my channel, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to do so. We all learn from you, and potentially we talk about some things that are beneficial to others too. And that's what we intend to do by having this sort of the channel to talk about. So that's all for a mutual benefit, and hopefully, you also have to kind of sort out all the copyright and stuff. But we'll work that out. In this case, we decide to kind of showcase this one. Obviously, coming up with the content just myself, it's always difficult. So it's good to have somebody just kind of helping out. I'm gonna close this one here. So looks like we're gonna pencil in a topic for next week as SketchUp extensions. Um,
That'll be a good one.
yeah, so get
That'll be a
everyone,
real good one.
yeah, everyone hyped up about it. I have ton of content that are coming up. So I've been my heads down and doing reviews of some hardwares.
It's
So
the grindstone.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna have to spend some quality time with some of the new toys that has arrived. But Ted, you had the. Do you wanna run over the Enscape stuff again?
Yeah, so just really briefly, we're going to be on Thursday the 15th doing a presentation with Enscape. We're going to be going over some ways to improve your level of detail on exterior models in Enscape. We're going to be doing that. And then this year we'll be a part of the Enscape Envision 21 conference. And links in the description. Go check it out. Go sign up for the webinar if you haven't already. It'll be my first webinar, so go easy on me in the comments.
You go easy on
I'll do the
yourself.
best. I'll do the best I can. But it should be a good time. I think I'll learn a lot, and you'll learn a lot too. So, July 15th, go sign up.
Cool. I left that in a chat. I think I should modify the description. I'll be sure to do that as well. Other than that, thank you so much for everybody who joined in tonight. It's always pleasure to have all of you. Go sign up for Ted's webinar as I put this down on the description. And we're gonna try and see next week, same time. Same. What was that you always say?
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yes, absolutely. And potentially talking about the SketchUp extensions between you and me. Maybe we have a guest who talks about extension too. So
That
we'll
could be
see.
cool.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks,
Well, it's a
everybody.
plan. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Outro time.